The sun had barely risen when the first sounds of battle shook the valley. The air was thick with dust and smoke, making it hard to see far ahead. Soldiers shouted orders, and the clash of weapons rang loudly, echoing against the distant hills. Amid this chaos, John moved carefully through the uneven terrain. He had been in battles before, but today felt different. There was an unusual tension in the air, as if something unexpected was about to happen. John was not the tallest or strongest soldier in his unit, but he had a sharp mind and a calm way of observing things others often missed. He could notice small movements, hear faint noises, and make decisions in moments that would decide life or death. As he crept along a rocky ridge, he saw a flash of movement in the middle of the battlefield. At first he thought it was just another soldier, but then he realized it was a young woman, fighting fiercely despite being outnumbered. Her presence here was unusual. Women rarely fought in this battle, and yet here she was, her sword moving, with precision and determination. John's first thought was to keep going. After all, his mission was important, and getting involved could put both of them in danger. But something about her courage caught his attention. She wasn't just defending herself, she was protecting something, or someone, behind her, though. He couldn't see exactly what. Her movements were swift, her eyes sharp, and her energy unyielding. Despite the chaos around her, she seemed almost like a force of nature, moving with purpose and focus that made John pause. Suddenly, an enemy soldier appeared, charging toward her with a shout. Without thinking, John ran toward them, throwing himself between the woman and danger. He struck the soldier with quick, precise movements, knocking him down and giving her a chance to catch her breath. She looked at him with wide, startled eyes, but there was no fear, only determination. "Thank you," she said softly, her voice firm yet calm. John nodded, but didn't have time for more words. They both needed to move before more enemies arrived. The battle raged on around them. Arrows flew through the air, and distant explosions shook the ground beneath their feet. Smoke and dust made it hard to breathe, but John focused on keeping the young woman safe. He didn't know her name, her story, or why she was here, yet he felt an unexplainable responsibility. Something inside him told him that letting her face this danger alone was not an option. They moved together, ducking behind rocks and fallen trees for cover. John noticed how skilled she was in avoiding attacks. She didn't panic. Every movement was calculated, showing intelligence and courage far beyond her apparent age. Yet it was clear she had been through a struggle. Her clothes were torn, her skin scratched, and she looked exhausted. Still, she fought on. There was a quiet strength in her that made John admire her even more. He felt drawn to protect her, even without knowing why. At one point, they had to cross an open area to reach a safer path. The enemy's presence was heavy, and every step was dangerous. John held his hand out to her, signaling her to follow him quickly. "Trust me," he said. She nodded without hesitation. Together, they ran across the open ground, weaving between enemy soldiers and using every bit of cover they could find. It felt like hours, though it was only minutes, and by the time they reached relative safety behind a collapsed wall, both of them were panting heavily. John finally had a moment to observe her more closely. She was young, probably not older than 20, with striking features that made her stand out even in the middle of battle. Her eyes were sharp and alert, and despite the dirt and sweat covering her, there was a natural strength in her expression. Something about her presence was different from anyone he had met before. There was courage, yes, but also wisdom, as if she had seen and experienced more than most people her age. "Are you hurt?" John asked, noticing a shallow cut on her arm. She shook her head but winced slightly, showing that the injury was painful, but not debilitating. "I'm fine," she said. "I can keep going." John admired her resolve, but insisted she rest for a moment. He tore a piece of cloth from his own uniform and carefully wrapped her arm to stop the bleeding. She didn't protest. She simply accepted his help, her trust in him evident without words. The sounds of the battlefield continued in the distance, but this brief moment of calm allowed John to catch his breath and think. He didn't know who she was, or why fate had brought her into his path, but he knew one thing clearly. She needed him, and he couldn't abandon her. There was a sense of responsibility, almost as if some invisible force had decided that he must protect her. As the day wore on, they moved cautiously through the rough terrain, avoiding enemy patrols and seeking shelter wherever possible. They shared small bits of conversation when the danger allowed, though she revealed little about herself. She told him her name, Arya, but nothing more. John respected her privacy and focused on keeping them both alive. Despite the fear and exhaustion, he found himself impressed by her intelligence and calm under pressure. By evening, they found a small, hidden cave on the edge of a cliff, providing a temporary refuge from the chaos. They lit a small fire to stay warm and tended to their minor injuries. John watched Arya as she carefully cleaned her sword and checked her gear. She worked methodically, showing discipline and focus that reminded him of a seasoned warrior. He realized that whoever she was extraordinary, not just brave but wise, resourceful and determined. As night fell, the sounds of battle faded slightly, and for the first time, John felt a small sense of relief. They were safe for now, though the war around them was far from over. He couldn't help but wonder about Arya's story, who she was, why she was here, and what her life had been like before this day. But for now, those questions would have to wait. The immediate need was survival, and John was determined to see her through it. Sitting beside the fire, John offered her some water and a small piece of bread. She accepted gratefully, her eyes showing appreciation and trust. In that quiet moment, away from the chaos, a bond began to form, a bond that neither of them fully understood yet, but one that would shape the days to come. They were two strangers brought together by chance, thrown into a battle neither could fully control, yet somehow fate had chosen them to meet. John didn't know it then, but rescuing Arya that day would change both of their lives forever. She was more than just a fighter. She was someone destined for greatness, someone who would one day rule with wisdom and courage. And he, a simple soldier doing his duty, would play a role in her story that neither of them could yet imagine. After the first day of chaos and danger, John and Arya found themselves moving carefully through the rough terrain, always alert for enemy patrols. The sun had set behind distant mountains, leaving the valley in deep shadows, but they were determined to find a safer place to rest. Every step they took was slow and deliberate. The uneven ground, fallen branches, and hidden rocks demanded their attention, yet they moved with a sense of quiet determination. Both were aware that one wrong move could expose them to danger, but neither seemed afraid to face the challenges ahead. As they walked, John noticed how skillful Arya was at observing her surroundings. Her eyes constantly scanned the area, noting small movements and distant sounds that he would have overlooked. She could sense danger even before it appeared. John had faced many battles, but he had never met someone with such sharp instincts. He began to admire her not just for her bravery in battle, but also for her intelligence and awareness. She was more than just a fighter. She had a natural ability to survive and adapt, even in the most difficult situations. During a brief pause, behind a large boulder, John offered her some water from his canteen. She accepted it silently, taking slow, careful sips. Their eyes met for a moment, and John felt a strange sense of connection. They had been thrown together by chance, yet there was an unspoken understanding between them. Words were not always necessary. Sometimes shared experiences and mutual trust spoke louder than any conversation. "Thank you for saving me," Arya said quietly, her voice calm but filled with sincerity. John shook his head, waving his hand. "I didn't do anything special. I just did what I had to," he replied. But inside he felt a sense of pride. Protecting her had not been easy, and he realized that saving her had become more important to him than he had first admitted. There was something about her that made him want to keep her safe, no matter the cost. As night fell, they came across a small abandoned shelter near a riverbank. It was old and partially collapsed, but it offered protection from the cold wind and the possibility of hiding from patrolling enemies. They decided to spend the night there, building a small fire to keep warm. John carefully arranged some rocks to contain the flames, ensuring they wouldn't draw attention. Arya helped gather dry branches and leaves for fuel, moving with quiet efficiency. Watching her work, John was struck by her calmness and patience. Even in the middle of danger, she remained focused and composed. Sitting beside the fire, they shared a small meal of bread and dried meat John had kept in his pack. The food was simple, but in that moment it felt comforting. John asked her about herself, curious to know more about the young woman he had saved. Arya spoke carefully, revealing small details of her life. She grew up learning to defend herself and others, trained in strategy and survival from an early age. Yet she avoided mentioning anything about her family or status, keeping certain secrets close to her heart. John respected her privacy, sensing that there were things she could not yet share. Despite the danger that surrounded them, a sense of camaraderie began to grow. They shared stories of past experiences, small jokes, and observations about the world around them. For the first time since the battle began, John felt a small sense of normalcy. He realized that even in the midst of war, moments of connection and understanding could provide strength and hope. Arya, too, seemed to find comfort in his presence. Though cautious, she allowed herself to relax slightly, knowing that he would not harm her and that he genuinely cared about her safety. The night was long and filled with tension. Every distant sound of movement made them alert, ready to defend themselves at a moment's notice. But as the hours passed, the danger seemed to fade slightly, allowing them brief moments of rest. John took the first watch, keeping his senses sharp while Arya slept lightly, one eye open at times to ensure they were not ambushed. He admired her vigilance and strength. Even when exhausted, she remained alert and ready to act, demonstrating an inner courage that inspired him. In the quiet moments between danger, they spoke more openly. Arya shared her thoughts on life, justice, and the kind of world she hoped to see one day. John listened carefully, impressed by her wisdom and clarity of thought. She had ideas that were not only practical but also compassionate, showing concern for people beyond her immediate circle. John found himself respecting her even more, recognizing that her bravery extended beyond the battlefield. She had a vision for a better future, and he could see that she would do everything in her power to achieve it. As dawn approached, they prepared to move again. The riverbank offered limited protection, and they needed to find a safer path. John and Arya traveled cautiously, communicating silently through hand signals and brief whispers. They had developed an unspoken system of trust and cooperation, each aware of the other's strengths and weaknesses. John marveled at how naturally they worked together, as if they had trained side by side for years, even though they had only met a day earlier. Throughout the journey, John began to notice more about Arya that impressed him. Her determination was unwavering, and she faced every obstacle with a calm mind. She was resourceful, finding ways to use the environment to their advantage, avoiding dangerous areas, and navigating difficult terrain with ease. John realized that saving her had not been just an act of courage. It was a meeting of two people who complemented each other in unexpected ways. Together they could survive challenges that would have overwhelmed others. By midday, they reached a small clearing where they could rest and plan their next move. Arya carefully examined the area, identifying potential threats and places to hide. She explained her observations to John, and he listened attentively, learning from her keen insight. For the first time, John began to wonder about her background. Who was this young woman with such skill, intelligence, and strength? There was something extraordinary about her, though he could not yet put his finger on it. As they continued moving through the wilderness, John and Arya shared moments of quiet laughter, small stories, and brief smiles. These simple interactions created a bond that went beyond survival. They were no longer just a soldier and a young woman in danger. They were companions who trusted and relied on each other. The journey was dangerous, but it was also shaping a connection that neither of them had anticipated. By evening, they found another safe place to rest, a small hollow beneath the roots of a large tree. Exhausted but determined, they settled down, preparing for another night of vigilance. John realized that this was only the beginning of their journey together. He did not yet know the full story of who Arya was, and she did not yet know the impact he would have on her life. But one thing was certain: their bond, forged in danger and strengthened by trust, would guide them through the challenges ahead. The next morning, John and Arya awoke to a cold, misty dawn. The battlefield they had escaped was still alive with distant sounds of clashing swords and shouting soldiers, though they were far enough away to remain safe for the moment. They both knew that safety would only be temporary. Every step they took had to be cautious, every movement calculated, for danger lurked in even the quietest places. Yet, there was a strange calm between them now, a sense of purpose that had begun to grow alongside their trust in each other. As they continued through the forest, Arya led the way, her movements precise and thoughtful. John noticed how she used the terrain to their advantage, crossing streams where the water would cover their tracks, using dense thickets for cover, and climbing over rocks and fallen trees to avoid open areas. Every decision she made was careful and deliberate, demonstrating skills that John had rarely seen, even among the most trained soldiers. He found himself studying her closely, learning from her instincts and beginning to rely on her judgment almost as much as she relied on his protection and experience. During a short break beside a small stream, John watched her as she crouched to drink water. Her reflection rippled in the clear surface, revealing a young woman who had endured far more than her years should allow. He could see the determination in her eyes, the intelligence and strength that had kept her alive when so many others would have fallen. John felt a deep admiration for her, not only for her bravery in battle but for the way she carried herself with calm confidence and dignity. There was something about her presence that was magnetic, inspiring him to do more, to be better, and to protect her at all costs. As they moved on, John could tell that Arya had begun to open up, though cautiously. She spoke of her childhood, sharing small memories of her home and her early lessons in strategy and self-defense. Her words were careful, measured, and full of thought, hinting at experiences that had shaped her into the person she was today. She did not reveal everything, but John could sense that her story held many secrets, stories that would take time and trust to uncover. For now he listened, fascinated by her resilience and perspective on life. Hours passed as they navigated through the forest, carefully avoiding signs of enemy patrols. The tension never fully left the air. Every rustle in the bushes or distant shout reminded them that danger could appear at any moment. Yet their growing trust in each other made the journey easier. They had developed an unspoken rhythm, moving in coordination, communicating through subtle gestures and quick, quiet whispers. John realized that this partnership was unlike anything he had experienced before. He had fought alongside many soldiers, but none with the connection he felt with Arya. This was something deeper, built on trust, respect, and mutual reliance. By midday, they reached a small ridge overlooking a valley below. From this vantage point, they could see enemy movement more clearly. Arya paused, scanning the terrain with sharp eyes. "There are too many of them in the valley," she whispered. "If we go down there now, we risk being trapped." John nodded, impressed by her foresight. She had the ability to see patterns and anticipate danger in ways that most soldiers could not. He realized that her presence on the battlefield had not been accidental. She was not just a fighter, she was a leader, someone who could inspire and guide others even in the most chaotic circumstances. As they planned their next move, a sudden noise from behind made them both freeze. Arya immediately signaled John to crouch behind a cluster of rocks. A small patrol of enemy soldiers passed by, completely unaware of their presence. John was amazed at how effortlessly Arya had guided him into hiding, moving with the quiet confidence of someone who had trained for situations like this. Her calm under pressure reminded him once again of her extraordinary abilities. He realized that she had not only survived battles, but had learned to outthink opponents in ways that saved her life. And now, his. After the patrol passed, they continued moving through the forest, choosing a path that would take them to a more secure location. Along the way, Arya shared more of her thoughts with John. She spoke about the importance of making careful choices, about understanding the consequences of every action, and about the responsibility that came with being strong enough to survive. John listened intently, realizing that her wisdom went far beyond her years. Her words were not boastful or arrogant. They were measured, thoughtful, and deeply insightful. He began to understand that her strength was not only physical, but also mental and emotional, a combination that made her truly remarkable. As evening approached, they discovered a hidden cave on the side of a hill. It was small but well sheltered, offering protection from the elements and from potential pursuers. Inside, John helped Arya make a small fire, and they both took a moment to rest and tend to minor injuries. The cave provided a rare sense of security, and for the first time in days they were able to relax slightly. John watched Arya as she carefully cleaned her weapons and checked their supplies. She moved with methodical precision, ensuring everything was in order. Her focus and discipline were inspiring, and he felt a renewed sense of respect and admiration for her abilities. As night fell, the cave became their temporary sanctuary. They shared a simple meal, discussing what the next days might hold. John could tell that Arya was thinking ahead, planning for possible dangers and outcomes. Her mind was sharp and strategic, always considering multiple options and contingencies. John realized that she was not just surviving, she was preparing for a future that required intelligence, courage, and careful planning. The realization filled him with awe. Whoever she was destined for something greater than he had ever imagined. In the quiet of the night, Arya finally revealed a small piece of her secret to John. She did not go into details, but she hinted that her life was connected to a greater responsibility, one that would shape not only her own future but the lives of many others. John listened carefully, understanding that she was trusting him with a fragment of her truth. It was a fragile bond, but it was growing stronger with each shared moment of survival, each act of protection, and each quiet conversation. By the time they settled down to rest, John realized that their journey together had become about more than survival. It was about trust, mutual respect, and the quiet recognition of each other's strengths. He understood that Arya's courage and wisdom were extraordinary, and he felt honored to be part of her journey. At the same time, he knew that there were challenges ahead, obstacles that would test not only their physical abilities but also their trust and resilience. Yet, for the first time, he felt confident that together, they could face whatever came their way. As the fire burned low, casting soft shadows on the cave walls, John felt a deep sense of purpose. He did not yet know the full story of who Arya was or what destiny awaited her, but he knew one thing: protecting her and walking beside her on this journey had become his mission. The bond they had formed in the heat of battle, strengthened by trust and mutual respect, would guide them through the challenges ahead. And as they drifted into a cautious sleep, both John and Arya were unaware of how much their lives would soon change, how their destinies were intertwined in ways they could not yet imagine. The journey back to Arya's homeland was far from easy. Though the battle in which John had first met her was behind them, danger still lingered at every step. Enemy scouts patrolled the forests and valleys, and rumors of betrayal spread among factions hoping to seize power. John and Arya moved cautiously, knowing that one wrong decision could cost them everything. But even in the midst of these challenges, their bond had grown stronger. Trust was no longer optional, it was essential for survival. As they entered a narrow mountain pass, Arya paused to observe the terrain. Her eyes scanned the rocks, slopes, and hidden paths with incredible precision. "We have to move carefully," she whispered. "One false step and they could trap us from both sides." John nodded, impressed by her foresight. He had faced many dangerous missions before, but Arya's ability to anticipate threats went far beyond his training. It was as if she could see possibilities others would overlook. He felt grateful to have her guiding them, even as he used his own experience to cover their flanks. During the journey, they faced more than just physical threats. Political tensions had spread throughout the region. Arya's name, still mostly unknown to the wider world, carried weight among those who recognized her potential. Some factions tried to stop her from reaching her kingdom, sending spies and mercenaries to intercept them. Jon's role became not only that of protector but also of advisor. Together, they devised strategies to avoid ambushes, using both cunning and courage to outmaneuver their enemies. One day, they came across a small village under threat from rogue soldiers. Arya insisted they help the villagers despite the risks. Jon was hesitant, worried about drawing attention to their presence, but Arya's determination was clear. "If I have the chance to protect people, I cannot ignore it," she said firmly. They worked together to defend the village, using clever traps and tactics to drive off the attackers. Jon watched in admiration as Arya coordinated the villagers, inspiring courage and unity even in those who had felt hopeless. That day he realized her leadership was not just about strength, it was about inspiring others to act, even when fear threatened to paralyze them. Nightfall often brought its own challenges. They had to find safe places to rest, and every evening felt like a test of patience and vigilance. In these quiet moments, Jon and Arya shared stories of the past, hopes for the future, and reflections on the journey so far. Arya spoke about her dreams of building a kingdom where people could live without fear, where justice and compassion would guide rulers. Jon shared stories of his own childhood and experiences, finding that even a simple soldier's perspective could offer lessons in courage and perseverance. Their conversations, simple yet profound, strengthened the trust between them. The days blurred into weeks as they continued moving through forests, mountains, and open plains. Along the way, Jon witnessed Arya's brilliance in action countless times. Whether it was leading them through treacherous terrain, negotiating with wary allies, or staying calm under pressure, she proved time and again that she was more than just a survivor. She was a leader destined for greatness. Jon's respect and admiration deepened, and he began to understand why fate had brought them together. Saving her that first day had been more than an act of courage. It was the beginning of a partnership that could change the course of many lives. Eventually, they reached the borders of Arya's kingdom. The journey had tested them both physically and mentally, forging a bond that neither could break. Jon had grown into a protector and advisor, someone Arya trusted implicitly. She, in turn, had shown him the meaning of courage, wisdom, and selflessness. As they approached the gates of her city, they were met with both awe and skepticism. Many had heard rumors of a young woman returning under the guidance of a loyal soldier, but few knew what to expect. Arya faced her first political challenge, convincing the kingdom's council to recognize her authority. She spoke with clarity, passion, and confidence, addressing fears and doubts with reason and empathy. Jon remained at her side, offering support and advice when needed, though he allowed her to shine in her role. Their partnership was evident to all who watched. It was not just strength and skill that had brought them this far. It was trust, respect, and the unwavering bond forged in the fires of adversity. Weeks turned into months as Arya consolidated her power and established her leadership. Jon remained her steadfast ally, guiding her through the complexities of politics, strategy, and negotiation. Together, they faced threats from rival factions, internal unrest, and lingering enemies, overcoming each challenge through a combination of wisdom, courage, and careful planning. Every success reinforced their belief in each other and in the future they were building. By the time the kingdom was secure, Jon and Arya had proven that their partnership was not only essential, but transformative. Years passed, and Arya's kingdom flourished under her leadership. The trials she faced on the journey with Jon had shaped her into a wise, compassionate, and respected ruler. Her people admired her for her strength, fairness, and ability to inspire others. What had started as a dangerous escape with a loyal soldier had transformed into a story of leadership, partnership, and enduring trust. Jon, once a simple soldier, became one of the kingdom's most trusted advisors. He was known not only for his bravery in battle but for his insight, loyalty, and calm judgment. He had never sought recognition, but his contributions were undeniable. People often spoke of the day he saved Arya, the young woman who would become queen, unaware at the time of the destiny that awaited her. That single act of courage had changed the course of history for the kingdom, and Jon's role in her journey was celebrated quietly, but profoundly. The bond between Jon and Arya remained strong. Their trust in each other had been tested countless times, and it had never faltered. Together, they faced both external threats and internal challenges, always relying on their shared judgment and understanding. Their partnership was a model of cooperation and respect, showing that true strength comes not just from individual ability, but from mutual support and loyalty. As Arya ruled wisely, she often reflected on the journey that had brought her to this point. She remembered the first day on the battlefield, when Jon had risked his life to save hers. She remembered the days of cautious travel, the nights of whispered plans, and the moments of quiet trust that had shaped their relationship. Every challenge they had faced together had strengthened her resolve, teaching her lessons in courage, humility, and the value of loyal companionship. Jon, too, remembered those early days with clarity. He had not known at the time that the young woman he saved was destined to be queen. Yet looking back, he realized that fate had been at work. Their meeting had not been a coincidence but a turning point in both their lives. Through shared struggles, careful planning, and unwavering trust, they had built something lasting and meaningful. Their journey was proof that courage, loyalty, and integrity could overcome even the greatest obstacles. Over time, the story of Jon and Arya became part of the kingdom's history. People spoke of the young queen and the soldier who had stood by her side, inspiring future generations with their example of courage, loyalty, and partnership. The tale reminded everyone that heroes could be found in unexpected places and that acts of kindness and bravery could change the world. As they grew older, Arya continued to rule with wisdom and compassion while Jon remained her trusted ally and friend. Their lives, forever intertwined, were a testament to the power of courage, trust, and enduring bonds. They had faced impossible odds, survived danger, and built a legacy together, a legacy that would be remembered for generations. Even in moments of quiet reflection, they knew that their story had been shaped by shared challenges, mutual respect, and the courage to act when it mattered most. From the battlefield to the palace, their journey had been extraordinary, proving that trust and loyalty could transform lives and shape destinies. And as they looked to the future, they faced it together, confident that no challenge was too great when met with courage, wisdom, and unwavering partnership.